This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasquet, continuing 16 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasquet, and I'm so glad you're here as we look ahead to the fall market of 2025. A shifting market where home buyers have more choices, more opportunities, and more power. And sellers will still do well, but they might not hold all the cards anymore. So, let's find out what you need to know about the upcoming fall market. Joining us now is Rebecca Donatelli with the Ellie Group at Elite Sotheby's International Realty in Pepper Pike, Ohio, in the Cleveland area. Rebecca is the past president of the Lake and Geauga Area Association of Realtors, and she's currently a district vice president for the Ohio Realtors. In 2019, Rebecca was named as a member of NAR's 30 Under 30 class, which recognizes the nation's top young real estate professionals. She's also the author of the best-selling book, Think Bigger. It's Your Time. Step into Leadership. Rebecca, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Hi, excited to be here.
I am so glad you're here. So right off the bat, tell me all about the Ellie Group.
Yes, I'm so excited. So in the last maybe 2 months, I launched a new team with my business partner Natalie Antonelli. We are the Ellie Group with Sotheby's International Realty here in Cleveland, Ohio. And we're excited. She's been in the industry over 20 years and I'm just over 10. So we work really well together and we've got a lot going on and we're busy here in Cleveland.
Wonderful. And your office is located in Pepper Pike, which is so much fun to say.
It is, yes. Yeah, so we're with Sotheby's International Realty. Our office is in Pepper Pike, which is on the east side of Cleveland. We service all over west side, east side, but that's where our office currently is, yeah.
Excellent. And so how's business in Pepper Pike and the greater Cleveland area?
Oh, it's great. It's an interesting time because we've been very used to a specific market over the last couple of years. It's been very much a seller's market, and we're definitely starting to see a bit of a shift. For us, it's been very, very busy. We're fortunate for that, both on the buy and the sell side. But as we get into the fall 2025 here, we're definitely seeing a bit of a shift that's new, even within the last couple of months. So it's been really, interesting and important to keep our pulse on that because it was kind of like a quick shift, in my opinion, and making sure that we're letting buyers and sellers know what that's looking like getting into the fall market here.
I see. We started to see that shift down south and out west, where it was slowly becoming a balanced market, not so much a seller's market anymore. And so it's moving its way north, I see. Is it now balanced or just on the way to balanced?
I would say we're probably in the middle. We're definitely shifting more towards that balanced market where we are seeing properties sit a little bit longer on the market. We're seeing more price reductions hit. And I think that's just because a lot of listings, when they hit the market, they're using comparables from even 6 months ago from a completely different market. And so it's okay to see, to be unsure when you list the property. And that happens just in our industry. There's ebbs and flows constantly. But we are seeing more days on market. We are seeing more price reductions. It's definitely shifting more to a balanced market, and it is giving buyers a little bit more of an opportunity if they don't want to make such a quick decision to maybe sleep on it or look at some more options and have some more options to look at as they're making their buying journey.
So, Rebecca, is that shift because more homes are coming on the market? I mean, that's usually a driving force.
It definitely is. I mean, we are definitely seeing a pickup in the inventory. There's certain pockets where there's more inventory than others, but just in general, east side, west side, everywhere in Cleveland, we're definitely seeing more houses that are coming up, which again, on the buy side, gives them more of an opportunity to look at more properties. But on a sell side, then you have more competition. So yes, we've definitely seen a pickup in our inventory for sure.
Interesting. So let's talk about that market shift and what it might mean to buyers and sellers, starting with buyers. Now, if I come to you and I decide to buy a house in the fall of 2025, what will that market shift mean to me?
Before, in the last couple of years, it was a property hits the market and you have to be in there as soon as it hits. And not only do you have to be in there as soon as it hits, but then you have to make a very fast decision. Now we're seeing buyers are able to take a little bit more time. We're seeing them maybe come in with an offer that might be a little bit lower. I will say that we at the LA Group have listed quite a few properties recently, and we have still had quite a few that have sold very fast in the first couple of days. So that's still part of our market. It's really property dependent, honestly, and it's also where is that property priced? Because again, the comps that you might have seen 6 months ago, that might not be necessarily where the house is priced today. So from a buyer's perspective, it's really, what makes the most sense for them. They're kind of able to look at as what they want. But there are certain properties where if it fits for them, they might have to make a quick decision because we're still seeing some properties sell pretty quickly.
Because there's still a lot of buyer demand, even though the market is shifting.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a buyer demand. Here in Cleveland, our market sometimes can be weather dependent a little bit. And, even though we're starting to get more into fall, it's still our temperatures are still really nice. People are still out. They're looking at things. We're right past that back to school time, which sometimes you see a little bit of a dip right then, but then it picks up again. So folks are kind of back in school, and the buyer demand is still high. And so from a seller's perspective, that's still great. But from a buyer's perspective, like I said, they'll still have more options to look at, and they're still out and they're still looking at properties.
So Rebecca, real quick, let's compare just about a year ago to right now. Now, a year ago, if I was a buyer, sometimes I'd have to come in at or above list price. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'd have to give up the home inspection if I wanted to stay competitive, and whatever the seller wanted, the seller got. How has that changed?
That's definitely changed. As I mentioned, we are still seeing some multiple offer situations where there are properties that might go over. However, a majority of that has definitely changed where buyers feel they have a little more weight on their side versus just giving the seller essentially what they want and then some. And so, and for buyers, it's been a nice little breather because it really was like that for a very long time where, like I said, they're rushing into properties, they're getting in as soon as they can, they're writing the offer as soon as they can, and they are giving up a lot of things that they otherwise might not have, such as the home inspection or offering an appraisal gap coverage or a quick close or, anything that the seller would really want. We've definitely seen a soften in that, not for all properties, but for quite a few of them. So it gives the buyer a little more leeway rather than, a year ago.
I see. And so if I want to buy a house in the fall of 25 and I want to get it, I don't want to lose out. Rebecca, what's your best advice to me?
The first thing from an agent's perspective is still giving the listing agent a call and finding out what's most important to that seller. Because regardless of whether you're in multiple offers or not, you still want to do some due diligence ahead of time to know what's important to that particular seller. Do they care about the earnest money amount? Do they want a clean offer with less contingencies? Do they want a quick close? So having the agent do some due diligence ahead of time and then sitting down to write an offer that makes sense as a whole. And also looking at the comparables, but keeping in mind that the market has really shifted in the last 6 months, and what you might have seen 6 months ago price-wise might have changed, but making sure the offer is still strong. I think really the offer as a whole right now is important, and finding out if there are multiple offers, because even though the market has shifted more to a balance, like I said, we're still seeing some situations where you've got quite a few buyers up against for the same property. So making sure that the package as a whole makes the most sense for that particular buyer, and thinking about the seller as well.
Interesting. And moving on to sellers. Now, every seller hopes for a fast sale in a short amount of time. Has that changed?
We have seen that change, absolutely. In fact, a couple of our recent sales have, in fact, a cash sale that we had recently that would normally be a quick 2 week close. We actually had a 2 month close on that one. And that was buyer and seller agreeing on that because of whatever they needed that more time. Maybe the seller needs time to move out, they need to find something. So, the quick close is not necessarily for everybody. That hasn't really changed. Again, that's part of that due diligence process of finding out from the listing agent, what does that seller want? Do they need more time to find another property? Are they moving out of town? Are they building something and they need more time? Do they just want that quick close and to get on with it? So making sure that you're doing that ahead of time, because regardless of the market, every seller is always going to have their own, timeline of what they want. So just making sure you have an agent that's really doing some homework on it, not just assuming they want a quick close. Because I just wrote an offer this morning for a client, and that particular seller needed a longer close. And had I assumed they wanted a shorter one, it might not have been as appealing of an offer to them. So it really just is seller dependent.
Hey, when do you find out about that offer?
I'm hoping later today or tomorrow. We'll see.
Well, the best of luck. Knowing you, you will get it.
Thank you.
And again, about sellers now. What about price? Have sellers in the fall of 2025 missed the peak price that they could have gotten a while ago?
It's such an interesting thing, because obviously no one has a crystal ball on what the market is going to look like 6 months from now. So it's really hard to say, did you miss out? Because we don't know what the market's going to look like a year from now. We just have to go on what we're seeing currently trending in that particular area at that particular price point. The answer to that question is no, not necessarily. You just have to be very smart about your pricing, because even if you have a seller that wants to price it a little high based on what they saw 6 months ago or they think is a good price, you then risk it sitting. And then if it sits too long, then you could risk getting some really low offers that are lower than what you might have gotten had you priced it a little bit better from the beginning. So no, not necessarily. Just doing that homework of, what does the market look like today? What does it look like yesterday? Looking at the trends in that area, look at the other price points, do some due diligence on the comps. Look at the comps from 6 months ago and a year ago, but making sure you as the agent have your pulse on the market today.
Right. And of course, even if they don't get the absolute highest price that they might have at some point, they're going to have so much equity if they've owned that house for a bunch of years. And that is a big factor for every seller.
It absolutely is. Yeah, we have those conversations with all of our seller clients. So making sure you're looking at everything when you go to list is critical.
And another question about sellers. It wasn't too long ago that they could just put a for sale sign up and bam, the house would sell. Does it need to be in perfect condition now or not?
Great question. And we definitely make sure before we put a list of property on the market that we're identifying the items that might need to be addressed, whether it's painting the property, staging a property. Right now, that is something that maybe 6 months ago you might not have needed to consider a year ago. And whether it's staging with furniture you have or bringing in new furniture to kind of set up some of the rooms, getting it ready for market. The seasons change, so maybe doing a power wash or things like that. Every property is different, but yes, those details really do matter, especially when it comes down to the price. Even just a little paint job, even one room or the whole house, it to a buyer when they're looking, that will affect how it's listed and how the buyer is going to come in. And we really make sure we line up our properties so that they're positioned the best way that they can. Some might need more than others. But it is important to identify those things, whatever they are, before you hit market because, yeah, it's definitely shifted. And as I mentioned, buyers have more options now than they did 6 months ago. So,
And Rebecca, it sounds as though with the market shift, staging your home professionally might be more important than ever.
it really is. And the staging a home, whether it's the whole property, if it's a larger home, or even just the main rooms, the living room, little things in the kitchen, maybe the owner's suite or the primary bedroom. That makes a big difference because it really allows a buyer to visualize what that home could look like for them. Some homes sell better completely empty. I've had some properties that just have showed better with nothing in them at all. But on the flip side, especially with a vacant property, it sometimes allows a buyer to really visualize themselves in that home with a bed in the bedroom and a couch in the living room and, trinkets around the kitchen. So the staging is really important. We've definitely been utilizing staging more frequently, honestly, than we had. And I do think that makes a big difference for a lot of properties.
I see. And Rebecca, also another big change. We're slightly more than a year into the new rules about commissions. Has anything really changed? Because most agents I talk to say the seller is still delighted to pay the buyer's share.
We're seeing the same thing. And I think a lot of that really comes down to having those conversations with the seller from the get-go. When you sit down with them from day one, you're having that listing appointment, you're having that consultation, you're going through the property, you're pricing the property. We create a net sheet for them that identifies all of the costs associated with the sale and what they're going to pocket at the end of the day. Most sellers are still willing, either they'll set aside a certain amount or they'll say, hey, we're willing to pay a commission, have the buyer's agent included as a term of the offer, and we'll look at everything and determine what makes the most sense financially for us. I really do think that comes down to the agent properly discussing how that works and what that's going to look like, full transparency from the get-go, and being on the same page about it.
Oh, that's good to know. Very interesting, Rebecca. And so finally, as we wrap up our conversation about the fall market of 2025, tell me, what's the most important advice you could give to a buyer and a seller, beginning with buyers?
Most important advice, I would say, and this goes for both, but the most important advice is have someone that you trust representing you to have your back. Because that particular person will look at the trends of the market, what's changed now versus what's happening today, put you in the best place possible, have your back, do that due diligence ahead of time and really guide you as a buyer to making the right decision. That would be my biggest advice. And that goes for both buyers and sellers. And on top of that, from just a buyer perspective, understanding that the market has shifted a little bit is so important as you're doing your homework and looking at properties and making the decisions about what's best on your buying search.
Excellent. And anything specific for sellers?
Yeah, with the sellers, it's really the same, understanding that things have changed, including the price and making sure that with an agent, being very transparent about what the market looks like, because you don't want to list your home with unrealistic expectations because the market has shifted. And I think there's a lot of people that are still struggling a little bit with that, which is okay because, some people don't necessarily see how the market's changed from like 6 months, before to now. So really just having a very realistic understanding of what that market, where they are in that price point looks like. If they need to make adjustments, being willing to make them. And as I mentioned on the buy side, just having someone really trusting that has your back to represent you.
Excellent. And now the last two questions, Rebecca. Beginning with buyers. Is this a good time to buy a house?
That's such an interesting question because it's the market is always going to be ever changing. What we see today might not be what the market looks like next summer in 26. But the answer is yes. It is a great time to buy. The market has given buyers now an opportunity to spend a little bit more time. They're not making as quick decisions. And again, if they're set up for success from the beginning, they're having that buyer consult with their agent, they know what the market looks like, so they're set up for success in that sale, then yes, definitely a great time to buy.
And what about sellers? Is now a good time to sell your house?
Great question. And again, I would say the same thing on the selling side. The thing I would really make sure people are cautious about is just having a realistic expectation of what the market looks like. It could be more days on market. It could be a different price than what it might have been before. It's still a great time to sell. Things are still moving somewhat quick. But just having that realistic expectation from the get-go so that they're set up for success on the sell side.
Excellent. Well, Rebecca, I really want to thank you for being on the show today and sharing your perspectives, your strategies, and your insights with us as buyers and sellers approach the fall market of 2025. Thank you, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Rebecca Donatelli with the Ellie Group at Elite Sotheby's International Realty in Pepper Pike, Ohio, in the Cleveland area. Rebecca is the past president of the Lake and Geauga Area Association of Realtors, and she's currently a district vice president for the Ohio Realtors. In 2019, Rebecca was named as a member of NAR's 30 Under 30 class, which recognizes the nation's top young real estate professionals. She's also the author of the best-selling book, Think Bigger. It's your time. Step into leadership.
You're listening to Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasquet.
And now it's time for Beyond the Basics, in which we bring your real estate knowledge to the next level. And today, as we enter the fall market of 2025, let's talk about what the change of seasons means to real estate all across the country. Traditionally, the spring market is the biggest, best, and busiest real estate market of the year, when sellers from coast to coast put their houses up for sale. Why? Because in many cases, the houses look their best in springtime. The flowers are blooming, the lawn is green, and the deck or the patio are all set up to enjoy the gentle weather that settles in between the winter and the summer. A great time to sell a house, and a great time to go out looking at houses. And traditionally, the spring was followed closely by the summer market, when parents of school-aged children made their moves, so the child could end up the previous year at their old school and start up at their new school at the end of the summer. Again, traditionally, things started to slow down in the fall, but not completely, because some houses for sale were still left over from the spring and summer markets, and some buyers were still trying to land a home of their own before the end of the year. But in the winter, things really used to slow down, and the period between Thanksgiving and around Valentine's Day was very slow. People were just doing other things, and although sales still happened during that period, it was relatively quiet. But, like so many other things, real estate changed during COVID. People were so desperate to get a house, and the competition was so fierce, the seasonal aspect of real estate kind of went away. People bought houses in every season of the year. People sold houses in every season of the year. The spring market became less significant, and the sleepy winter market woke up. So, what's this mean to you? Well, it indicates that if you're buying a home, there's no need to wait for the spring market. If you're ready to buy now, you'll find plenty of homes for sale. And as we've mentioned on the show recently, the markets are shifting towards a balanced market, which is much better for someone buying a home. They'll have more time to think about it. They have more negotiating power, and they have a better shot at getting the home they love. And if you're a seller, why wait for the spring market when so many other people will be putting their homes up for sale? They're your competition. Why not get a jump on them by putting your house on the market earlier? Again, with the changes we've seen in real estate seasonality, you will still find plenty of buyers in the fall and the winter. But those buyers tend to be very serious. They're not just window shoppers, so you might do very well in the fall and the winter. And finally, there's one more great reason to buy or sell in the coming months: the holidays, because there's nothing like celebrating the holidays in your brand new home. Next time on Real Estate This Week, fall maintenance for your home. We'll help you get your house ready for whatever winter throws at it. Expert advice from the top of the roof to the bottom of the basement. That's next on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasquet, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasquet drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasquet. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.